Travis Wayne Goodsell. So on this day that Russia has commenced World War III against Ukraine with the cyber terrorism, on the day where there's a massive storm, again causing havoc in the United States, when we're not even supposed to have tornadoes yet. It's not tornado season. And yet here we are having severe thunder and tornado storms. But yeah, on the day of the fulfillment of the thaw, I had watched the most hilarious advertisement on YouTube. And there is no commercial channel for it. You're supposed to click on the video to sign up for the $25 value cards. Telling you how you should not exercise and you should not eat healthy food. Oh my God! How did YouTube allow that on? It was hilarious. She was comparing exercise and healthy food to bottles of water. Oh my God. Talk about your fallacy arguments and commercials. Oh dear God, it was hilarious. And she's stuck in. Unbelievable. Yeah, and so I had to watch Stephen Colbert's show also before doing this video because he had John Oliver on. Oh, hilarious. So, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have learned their lesson that they don't excommunicate people anymore because it draws too much attention to the church. And so they've learned they have to silence everybody and make it go away as if it never happened. And so if you remember, James J. Hamula, he was excommunicated. What happened to him? Where is he? Is he dead somewhere? Could be. Wouldn't surprise me. He will not make public appearances and nobody will do interviews. You know, oh, how you doing after all these years of being excommunicated for not apostasy and not any criminal or sexual sin? What did you get excommunicated for? Well, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to not discuss why I was excommunicated. Yeah. And then there's a guy from, I don't know, it seems like years ago, Brad Wilcox. Whatever happened to him? Oh, he's going to be involved with little kids again on the 20th. Yay! What happened to those protests that were supposed to be getting planned? Yeah. And the church are bullies. Plain and simple. Which makes them not the true church. But nobody catches on. It doesn't click in people's heads, not even ex-Mormons' heads. It's like they won't touch the issue about how evil the church is. They'll just stick to safe videos about how the church is a cult. And they'll talk about how to make coffee. But when it comes to the church, no, they're afraid. The church might come after them, and they do. Church destroyed me, because I'm bold and daring, unafraid of what the church can do to me, even if it means my death. And I used to be popular, believe it or not, as you probably won't, because you go, I don't see any lots of video views like those other ex-Mormons who talk about coffee making and how Joseph Smith is to be blamed for all things. And so, yeah, who's responsible for ex-Mormons, falsely blaming Joseph Smith for what he was framed and set up for? September 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Yeah. We're going to review them. The 6 individuals are Lynn, Canavell, Whitesides, Avram Gileadi, Paul Toscano, Maxine Hanks, Lavina Fielding Anderson, and D. Michael Quinn. You know, it's how apostles do their names once they get called into the apostleship. They always have a letter rather than the full name of that one. So, yeah, very common Mormonism thing to do. And so, who were they? What were they? What's going on? Why does the church no longer refer to that, and what happened to them? Well, D. Michael Quinn died last year, in case you didn't know. But I will read from the Wikipedia for you. The September 6 were 6 members, Mormons, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who were excommunicated or disfellowshipped by the church on September 6, 1993. Allegedly for publishing scholarly work. They work at BYU. Nothing scholarly comes out of there, and we're going to discuss that. Against or criticizing church doctrine or leadership. Yeah, that's why I no longer go to church, is because my bishop at the time, in 2017, wanted to meet with me in private, and I refused. I was in a marriage crisis that was ending, and he didn't care, and it had to do with a YouTube video with advertising a book that I had just published on how the Book of Mormon preaches Adam fell that man might be, and that was going against church leadership and doctrine. Anybody familiar with your Book of Mormon? You might recall where that passage is. Let's bring it up for you. Second Nephi, chapter 2, right before Second Nephi, chapter 3. Verse 25, Adam fell that man might be. Men are that they might have joy. We all are required to memorize it in seminary, institute, missions. This is a scripture mastery. It's the dominant doctrine of the church. In the keystone of our church, the Book of Mormon. And the bishop said, I'm going against the church leaders and the doctrine of the church for that publication and video. Yep. And so the term September 6th was coined by the Salt Lake Tribune, Peggy, and was used in the media and subsequent discussion. The church's action was referred to by some as evidence of an anti-intellectual posture. No, it was the birth of an anti-intellectual posture on the part of church leadership. Because if you paid attention to conferences thereafter, they were all talking about, oh, intellectualism, evil. Mormons must be dumb and sheeple. They must conform and comply and stay away from other things beyond what we publish for you. And despite your questions, you can't ask them. It is verboten. Yeah, that September 6th really disturbed and shook up the church. And so there's a little segment for each one of them, their profile, as we'll go over each one of them here in the order that they have them, and I don't understand why the order, but yeah, September 6th is not on September 6th. It would have been cool if the church coordinated their attack, but they didn't. Let's see, the first one they have listed is Lynn Canavell Whitesides. She's a Mormon feminist. Wow, that'll teach us to trust feminism. Anti-Mormon. And is noted for speaking on the Mother in Heaven. No! Blasphemy! If you notice my videos, last week, and I can't remember how far back, I've been giving you Mother in Heaven videos, giving you her origin and where she is in Scripture. Sunday school lesson a couple of weeks back, Moses chapter 7. There she is. Let's see, was the first of the group to experience church discipline and was disfellowshipped. So they're doing them in order of punishment. Okay, that's good. That's thought out. And so interestingly, the first was disfellowshipped. September 14th, 1993. Interesting. Though technically still a member, yeah, well, disfellowshipped. Can't partake in the sacrament anymore. Can't have callings. Can't work at BYU. She claims that she exploded out of the church and her marriage in 1993. And now she considers herself a practitioner of Native American philosophies. Okay, so you're culturally appropriating somebody else's religion. Great. Madonna pulled that stunt when she wanted to be a Jewish mystic, and the news couldn't get it right. They didn't understand what Jewish mysticism is, and so they said that she's become a Jew, which is different than James Baker in our church, or was in our church. He left the church. He was a bishop. He has a YouTube channel. He dropped it, and now somebody resurrected it, and it's not him behind it, but somebody's using his name in his old videos. But yeah, very weird. He became, James Baker became, I'm assuming it's James Baker. It's Baker, I know that much, because there's other Bakers in my life. Oh yeah, Laura Baker, I was doing it. One of those things where you can't remember at the time and then you remember later. But, he became Christian, and then shocked the Christian community and ex-Mormons and disappointed them, and they were all upset, and they abandoned him and ghosted him and cancel cultured him prior to all that crap, and he became Jewish, one of the versions of Jews, and so everybody thought he betrayed them. Can you say white supremacist, boys and girls? Very good. And so Avraham Gileadi, speaking of Jews, is a Hebrew scholar and literary analyst, and the one responsible for humiliating Russell M. Nelson, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, at the pulpit of conference. Remember, I've done those videos? There he is. There's the Hebrew expert Nelson refers to for the white supremacist definition of Israel. Oh, it was so hilarious. And then he thought he'd show me off by saying, well, it's in the footnotes because Abraham put it there. And he didn't. He didn't. Let's go there. Because that has to do with the thigh, which is today. Oh my God. Yes, so verse 28. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. And so y'all look down into the footnotes that Abraham was a part of for the Hebrew. And it says, I.e. They wouldn't put the Hebrew in. Knew better that it's not going to prevail. And the church refused. Oh my God. So they snuck it in rather than Hebrew and put I.E. Oh my God. He perseveres with God. It may also mean let God prevail. And then TG for topical guide, not Travis Goodsell, Israel, origins of. Oh my God. Talk about things coming back around as a boomerang to kick you right in the ass. Oh my God. And so, yes, because he knew the Hebrew, and it's not quite, no, I'm the one who knew, because the Jews are like, it has Prince, because Prince is there for as a prince, but we can't figure out how it works. Why not? Are you kidding me? The whole thing is building to the birth of Moses. That's why it's called the 5 books of Moses. But Moses even says, there will be a man like Moses, a man like me, in the future. And other prophets speak of him. But, yeah, it's Yah, the Hebrew God, Prince of God. It's the correct translation. And so if you're thinking in terms of Christianity, in which gods are real and they're supernatural, you have no clue about Jewish thinking, especially the author, and especially the origins of which the author is writing about. Constantine just utterly destroyed mankind's thoughts. The damage he has caused is massive. But yeah. So yeah, Abraham Gilead was the one in charge of the Hebrews in the footnotes for the Old Testament. And you see that they rejected him for the name Israel, as they put an I-E. Some person who does not know Hebrew put it in. And so knowing how it was done, it was after he had put it in. And so you will find on their original document that they worked from, Avram putting his little thing on there. Hebrew. Ta-da! And then you'll see somebody else cross it off and put IE. And you're supposed to sign each of the pages you do, so that people will have evidence against you in the future. But you guys don't know this part of it. And the reason why I know this is because I was involved in the second wave in early 2000s that became known to you guys as the 2009 Spanish edition, with the guide to the scriptures instead of Topical Guide and Bible Dictionary and such. And so there were some new policies for us that we had to adhere to because of what they have learned from the first time around, the mistakes and popularity of certain people who use that super secret sacred mission assignment to provide themselves with the lifestyle they now have, or have died. But dear God, just hilarious. So now you know the origin of that. So let's get back to Abraham and who he is. Is a Hebrew scholar and literary analyst who is considered, no, you can't put that in there, theologically conservative. Can't put that in there. Following his 1981, you have to reword it. You can't say considered theologically conservative. You have to put an example of what his fruits suggest. And they do that with his Isaiah. And yeah, we'll get into that. Following his 1981 PhD, just after the publication in 1979. They would have finished earlier, and as they would have gone through the printing processes and all that stuff. So, yeah, near the end of our 4-year term, we were shown the first printer's manuscript, or first printer's page of the finished product. So, dear God. In Ancient Studies, Brad Wilcox? Was he the teacher? Nope, it was Hugh Nibley from Brigham Young University. God, I just look at those names and cringe. And so here's what they should have put instead of, cross out the considered theological conservative, and just put this. He published a new interpretive translation of the book of Isaiah in 1988, and a study of its eschatological prophecies in 1991. Pay attention. I've been telling you, and I've been telling you, and they took it out of the footnotes and put in an IE, and here it is, right here for you. And this was even brought up as David Gaunt immediately said, Jesus. It's Jesus. And so it stays Jesus, because of Section 107's requirements that were applied to our committee. And his work, it doesn't seem to discuss it here. He is a Masoretic Jewish traditionalist, thus the theological conservative that they talk about here, in that the Jews in 800 AD CE to 1000 CE transformed the original biblical text. Dead Sea Scrolls, that's older than the Masoretic text. Emmanuel Tove, I recommend his work to you. You'll find him on academia.edu, where you'll find others who have posted his criticism of the Masoretic text in comparison with the Dead Sea Scrolls. A must-have if you're going to be a theology or a scholar of the Hebrew Bible or Hebrew textual criticism. But he decided to go in a manner that the Masoretes did, which was change the script from Paleo-Hebrew to Aramaic script, and that's because of the still lasting animosity towards the Samaritans. The Samaritan Bible still uses Paleo-Hebrew, and so the Jews, out of their hatred of Samaritans, had to distance themselves even further, and they violated their own Torah law that says don't add jot or tittle to the text. And so they changed everything. And you've got different groups of these Masoretes working on it, because one group did not do the whole thing. You have multiple groups, and they have different grammatical terminations and vowel usages for the same words when used in a sentence, in this grammatical sentence structure. And that makes it more complicated. And if you're familiar with Jacob talking to us in the Book of Mormon about how the Jews look beyond the mark and look for things they can't understand. Ta-da! The Masoretic text. But the Dead Sea Scrolls revealed that the Masoretic text is the closest match to the original, as the Dead Sea Scrolls are considered the most original, and confirms that, sure enough, I'm right. The Torah was written during the Roman period of time, and as apocalyptic literature, not as literal history. But this concept of altering the text to fit your bias is what Avraham is doing here with the book of Isaiah. And he was excommunicated for that. And I was told about his excommunication when I went to when I was involved in that committee. But Hugh Nibley, Truman G. Madsen, and Ellis Rasmussen praised his work. But, I'll just read it. But his argument that the Isaiah prophecies pointed to a human Davidic king who would emerge in the last days apart from Jesus Christ was controversial. And his second book was pulled from the shelves by its publisher, church-owned Deseret Book. Now do you understand why the church has destroyed me? Why they got pissed when I exposed them in this book. You guys do not see the big picture. You don't believe me, and so I have to keep repeating things and putting them in a different presentation for you because you don't get them, you don't understand, you don't believe. And so I can't go on to the peaceable things of the kingdom, like talking about the prophecies of the latter-day human Davidic king. As I'm now finally getting to the upper steps of learning, explaining to you that the first vision and Nephi coming to Joseph Smith are also telling us this. But you guys don't get it. Just hilarious. I would like to know his second book, since it got pulled by the church. It doesn't say the name of it. Let's do a check. La, 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 la. Isaiah Decoded. That's 2002. So Thrift Books has a list. Is it going to... Book of Isaiah, New Translation, The Last Days, Types and Shadows. Is that it? They do sell it. The other version or edition is out of print. Windows on the Prophecy of Isaiah, Apocalyptic Commentary on the Book of Isaiah, Apocalyptic Commentary of the Book of Isaiah. Do you know why that's used in the Book of Mormon? How Isaiah impacts gospel theology, the literary message of Isaiah, studies in the Book of Mormon, Isaiah, Apocalyptic Book of Isaiah, The Last Days. That's interesting. That's out of stock. So is it the same? It's just got a different cover? Types and Shadows from the Bible and the Book of Mormon. Yeah. It's the same title, right? Types and Shadows from the Bible and the Book of Mormon. Yeah. Okay, so that's the book that got banned by the church. Let's then find out Last Days, Types and Shadows from the Bible and the Book of Mormon PDF. Goodreads, Amazon, Isaiah Institute, Mormon Studies Manual. No. Archive, Jesus Christ, Types and Shadows, Book of Mormon Central. No. Joseph and Judah. Book of Mormon, no. So it looks like they don't have it. You'll have to buy it. And that's not an option for me anymore because the church destroyed me. Yeah. Want to read? I want to read. And I should already have a Goodreads account. They cover my books. I don't know if my password will be correct. It's already being used, so sign me in. Dear God. You didn't have that there. They're making this way too complicated. Now they're having me click on pictures. Yeah. Ta-da! Only one notification after all these years. So how do I read it? I want to read it. What do you mean it's on my shelf? Oh, okay, so it's just put on a shelf. Travis wants to read this book. But we're not going to let him. What the hell? Yeah, they're not letting me read it. It was a waste of my time. And yours. Blame Goodreads. But that's the book. My goodness. I could put it in my Abraham, or not Abraham. Go. Oh man, $70 for the hardcover. Dear goodness! But the paperback, $22. Oh, the hardcover is $13, and it's Prime. I had that book. I recognize that cover, but yeah, I've been destroyed, and it's been long since thrown away. Interesting. Alright, so I'll put it in that file, but not likely to ever be made available for me. Interesting. Alrighty. So we found the book that the church banned. Oh, I forgot to. Hold on. We need the picture for our video here. Bandstand. 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 Oh, web file. See this image? There we go. Chaos Day. And so it just shows where he got his PhD, doesn't it? His actual webpage gives us he's a BYU molded prodigy. And as we all learned from Brad Wilcox, having a BYU education does not make you smart. Because the majority of people who get degrees from Brigham Young only tend to only be able to work for the church, whether at BYU or in other capacities or in Utah. They're not really accepted outside of Utah. Their education is just worthless to people of the world, especially ancient studies from Brigham Young University. I went to Ricks College. No, not BYU, Idaho. Ricks College. My school no longer exists. And after I returned home from my mission, I decided to take all of the church's religion courses. And I then got trapped into a relationship with Lilith. And she took me up to Canada, where the cutest little babies are given to you for free. But nonetheless, went to the University of Lethbridge in Alberta. It was at that time I went the number 5 ranked school in the world. And I went with a course counselor, whatever they're called, at the beginning, and I was informed that none of my religion courses would work for their Bible studies courses, because their Bible studies courses were science-based, not religion-based. And so the temple video, the 4.5-hour temple video I did the other day, goes over Brigham Young's views in the pre-text endowment prior to 1990, which is 1991. I don't know why they do it the year before, other than it was copyrighted during that year. It wasn't implemented until 1991. So don't say pre-1990, pre-1991. It was still used in 1990. And Lucifer and his bestest buddy, the Christian preacher. And the description by Brigham Young oh my God. Yeah, he made Christianity seem horrifyingly evil. I'm not going to be Christian. I'm going to stay with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with the inverted pentagram on Temple Square. Oh, Christianity is Luciferian. I'm glad our church has no symbols, doctrines, theologies of Lucifer in it that is warned about in the Book of Mormon. So, you guys do not understand. BYU does not teach science. They don't teach the scientific method. When you do reports, you are not doing them correctly. You are not doing proper research. You are not doing proper study of whatever subject matter you're going into. You are coasting through school with a little effort. And it's horrifying. So, yes, despite his controversy, despite his knowledge of the Jews, that a mortal man is to be the Christ, he's not making that connection, you notice? his argument that Isaiah prophecies pointed to a human Davidic king who would emerge in the last days apart from Jesus Christ was controversial. Yeah, because there's no Jesus. This Davidic king is Jesus. But this is where the controversy comes, because this says that Jesus is the king. And that Lucifer is going to hand over the keys of the kingdom to him. Oh, I had crossed a line and the church destroyed me for it. And I'm allowed to put the video up still. So you'll get to know why whenever it comes time for you to no longer hear from me again. Oh my God. But this is a pattern that we have here. Is that these Mormons working at the BYU, working for the church, are loyal Mormons. They didn't start out rebels seeking to destroy the church. This was their field. They were doing their BYU educated research without science. And so when they make discoveries, like Abraham, he learned that the Jews don't believe in Jesus and believe in a mortal man, mortal parents, to be the Christ in the latter days. And so he was all into that, but he never made the connection to Joseph Smith in the first vision and Nephi and the Egyptian gold plates, which that's another video that I have for you. I've been throwing bombshell hints for you all day today. And we're entering into the day and I still have yet to shower and shave. But these Mormons weren't trying to destroy the church with their publications. They thought they were helping the church. And this is the problem that I've been trying to get across to you, is that the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith history, and the selections from the Book of Moses, from the JST, as well as the rest of the Book of Abraham, they're not literal history. But Mormons demand that it be Mormon history, that it be all literal history. And the church keeps perpetuating its literal history, literal history, literal history, literal history. Because Joseph Smith said Nephi and referred to Nephi. And so therefore it is. Just like Joseph Smith referred to the name of our church in these latter days, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which means he changed it. Well, go back. 1834. The leaders of the quorums gathered and voted for the changing of the name of the church. So how then is Brigham Young justified in claiming that Joseph Smith changed it again when he didn't change it the first change? It was voted by the leaders. And the Church of Latter-day Saints? Where's Jesus? We're putting human Christs in place of Jesus? The Church of Human Christs. Yes! That's what I've been trying to get across to you. We are Jewish Israelite Egyptians. That was Joseph's church. That's what needs to be restored. We are not Christian. How hard is this? It's apparently very hard. because the Danites demanded it have Jesus. And Brigham Young controlled the Danites. So Brigham Young changed the name of the church when he went to Europe, it was England, and told them it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so when he murdered Joseph Smith, he took captives to the desert valley here. The United States came in. And so Brigham Young said, okay, well, we're going to bring all the converts, even if they're poor, with a perpetual education or immigration fund, which the United States eventually would shut down the church for, because it's a crime. It's a criminal organization. But they came to Brigham Young because Brigham Young told them the name of the church. And he had the name of the church. And so they came to the name of the church. They didn't go to Sidney Rigdon's Church of Christ. They didn't go to the not yet made reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Oh, wait a minute. That has the same name as Brigham's. Why? Well, Joseph Smith III, when he was old enough, took a trip to the mighty Mississippi, to Utah, and was checking things out. And then came back and formed the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, not realizing that that's not the name his father gave. The knowledge of his father's church was gone. And he believed that Brigham Young was succeeding the church. And he then formed his own, now the Community of Christ. A very sad situation, but such is the case when you're dealing with enemies seeking to overthrow the government of the United States and the rest of the world with the Battle of Magog. That has begun today. So, let's see. There's more about Abraham. Okay, the reasons for his excommunication on September 15th, the very next day, from Lynn's, are unclear. If they pulled his book, it's very clear. According to Margaret Toscano, the wife of the next guy we're going to talk about, Paul Toscano, and I went to his office. I sat across the desk from him. I'm sure that's him. I'll get to that. Gilead's books interpreting Mormon scripture. Yeah. I got destroyed by the church because I did the same thing. And exposed that the church is a fraud using Jesus as the cover story. And so, do you not read your book of Revelation? The dragon? Oh, it's a real dragon. It's not human and represented in apocalyptic literature form as a dragon. Seeks to destroy the true human Davidic king. And they're looking for him. And they're wanting to destroy him. And so here Abraham comes around and tells Mormons, yeah, human. His work on Isaiah is all crap because there's a difference between Paleo-Hebrew and Semitic Hebrew, and what the Masoretes did was make it worse. And so I'd have to go into a big long video discussion on explaining why his work on Isaiah is just useless. But he did understand about the human King David. The bloodline. Abraham is compromised to the church. He caves in. He's a convert, by the way. He was given the Book of Mormon on his actual Wikipedia page, and joined the church, but then went to BYU. And if you understand that his education is all at BYU, and he's now excommunicated because of his education and his pursuit of study, where is he going to go? Where is he going to get a job? He can't. And so he caved and says, no, that wasn't why I was excommunicated. So why were you excommunicated? Well, it's a sacred secret. I'm bound not to disclose the matter. And let's see, it says here, the Church High Council, High Council someone else, ? Church afterwards reversed its disciplinary action against him and expunged it from the church records, which is now officially regarded as having never happened. You know, he begged and pleaded to come back because they destroyed him. And so now he is currently active in the church and was involved in the Hebrew round 2 version. I was told, no, we don't need your help with Hebrew. We've already got someone assigned to deal with the Hebrew. And so he continues to write books on Isaiah, as I went over with you. And it is interesting that he says Isaiah decoded, as I've been doing Book of Mormon decoded. And Mormons are clueless? Are you kidding me? Decoded? What? I don't understand. The Book of Mormon? How is it coded? What? It's like you guys never even heard of this guy. But yeah, he went back to work for the church at BYU. Even, let me confirm that. It'd be on his website or Wikipedia page. I keep forgetting to put the I at the end. Keep pronouncing it Gilead, because that's the name of the place. Okay. Yeah, he insists that his excommunication was recognized by church leadership as a mistake. Really? Talking about the mortal who will come and replace the false Christ of the great and abominable church? That's a mistake? That's what got Travis Wayne Goodsell shut down and silenced until April 21st. I told you prior to, that's the pattern YouTube uses, and they did it, and nobody listens, nobody cares, nobody believes. It's like you guys are all in conspiracy with the church to overthrow the world, and you're not seeing that they're trying to hurt you. They're using you to support them while they leave you to the slaughter. Today, Gileadi continues to research the writings of Isaiah and related scripture texts. Gileadi is the author of 10 books, and majority of them are in the book of Isaiah. Yeah, all of them. So it doesn't say where he's working. But it appears as if he was expunged from being excommunicated, that he was allowed back to BYU, but I can't find that. And they mentioned Neil A. Maxwell, the oversight. Yeah, Neil A. Maxwell is being blamed for September 6th. Oh, wait a minute, no. He was rebaptized into the LDS Church after the church reversed its disciplinary act. So it wasn't expunged. If he has to be rebaptized, it wasn't an expungement, as if it never happened. Guys, do you not understand how it works? If it never happened, you don't need to be rebaptized. Everything is restored. Your priesthood, all of that, put back in. When you went through the temple, all put back in as if it never happened. That's expunged. Getting rebaptized, having to go through all of it again, is not expungement. So yeah, it doesn't say what he's doing. Yeah, the last days, there it is, right there. Pulled from the shelves of Deseret Book. An LDS Covenant book was published by Covenant Communications, Inc. and is now available on Amazon and other publishers. Let's see. Yeah, Bruce R. McConkie conflicted with his works. Yeah, everybody's does. And I've gone over it with you who Brigham Young did, or Bruce R. McConkie did all the chapter headings. So Exodus or Ezekiel 38, guys. Bruce R. McConkie. Today. And who's coming in the midst? Jesus! Alright, so yeah, it doesn't say what he's doing now. He's active church member. My brother didn't need to look for him. Again, another BYU educated person who only got his PhD from the University of Michigan because he pulled the religion card, and so he can't get a job anywhere in the world other than at BYU and for the church. His life is minimal because he was taught by the church. And that's the big warning. Anybody who is educated from BYU on their resumes, you have to go, maybe I should choose someone else. Paul Toscano. Alright, here we go. Paul Toscano is a Salt Lake City attorney who co-authored with Margaret Merrill Toscano, his wife, a controversial book, Strangers in Paradox. Yep. I had the name and I lost it. Oh my goodness. Johnny Mathis. Whew. Can't forget that name. Strangers in Paradise. Strangers in Paradox. Explorations in Mormon Theology. 1990. In 1992, he co-founded the Mormon Alliance, the secret band of Gadianton within the secret band of Gadianton. He later wrote the book, The Sanctity of Dissent, after he was excommunicated, and its sequel, The Sacrament of Doubt. Are we bitter about being excommunicated, Mr. Lawyer Attorney? But when I was first trying to figure out how to sue the church, having found that they paid for my lockup in the secret Nazi concentration camp, I warn you, you don't listen, you don't believe. This is not a good thing, guys. This is dangerous, deadly, evil things that are going on here by the church. And so when I first heard about Nelson's daughter's lawsuit from people commenting on my channel, I was like, seriously? And if you didn't know, 6 children, all grown up now, were suing her and her husband for having them come over to their bountiful home in the 80s, and in the basement of their bountiful home, the claim was that Nelson's daughter and her husband were performing satanic pedophilia rituals on those 6 kids. And they had sued, and in the state court. I'm surprised they haven't been assassinated and locked up in the Nazi concentration camp in Utah, because they don't allow you to sue the church or anybody related to the church and its leaders. They treat you as the enemy. And I know this from experience, because I filed a lawsuit in the state court, and they turned around and said, "Screw you, Travis, we're locking you up, we're disappearing you, you'll never be seen again." And errors were made, and I'm free. And here I am, destroyed, because I found out the truth. And so the prosecution wanted to depose President Russell M. Nelson about what he knew and when he knew it. And oops, the judges, the Mormon judges in the case in the Supreme Court of Utah, dismissed the whole case. Nope. Nothing to see here. Move along. And so people were trying to throw in that Nelson himself was performing baby blood drinking sacrifices at the basement of the Salt Lake Temple. And that was too far even for me, because I can't find, the lawsuit of his daughter, I found that. It was on Nelson's Wikipedia page until the Supreme Court of Utah shut it all down. And now it's gone. Magically disappeared. Like the Book of Mormon plates. They learned from Joseph the wrong lessons to learn. And so he was one of the lawyers that I had found and tried to go to, and now crime is not a crime. Truth isn't true. Reality isn't real. I had no idea who he was. And say la vie. He chose to not go up against the church. He was excommunicated September 19th, 1993. The reasons for his excommunication, as reportedly given by church leaders, was apostasy and false teaching. Now, this was before his sanctity of dissent and sacrament of doubt, because those of 1994 and then 2007. So it had to do with strangers in paradox and his formation of the Mormon Alliance. But according to Toscano, him, right, not her, The actual reason was insubordination. Behavioral problems. In refusing to curb his sharp criticism of church leaders, preference for legalism, ecclesiastical tyranny, whitewashed Mormon history, and hierarchical authoritarianism. Where's Nazism? White supremacy, which privilege the image of the corporate church above its commitment to its members, to the teachings and the revelations of founder Joseph Smith and the gospel of Jesus. See, again, he's trying to merge the two together, and the church says, screw you, and he says, I'm not pulling my book like Abraham did. And so, yeah, he's a lawyer, so he gets paid big bucks. But, so apparently he wasn't a BYU person. Let's see if they've got more details about him. Strangers in Paradox. That's our theme song for the description below, in case you didn't know, and I'm going to write it down to make sure I remember. They don't have a link to him. Strangers in Paradise. Alrighty. So, yeah, he apparently was just a Mormon. It doesn't say where. I wish we'd have something on him. Margaret, she wrote about the missing rib. I just talked about that the other day, didn't I? Yep, there he is. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You would not help me. So I had to do it myself. He's no saint. Chemistry, that's not him. So yeah, apparently we're not allowed to see where he's been educated from the law offices. Yeah, he's a bankruptcy attorney also, so that keeps him safe. When the church destroys you, go to Paul Toscano for bankruptcy. Let's see. Don't Goodread, no. Sunstone magazines. Maybe. Holy shift. They're not talking about him. So he's keeping himself a sacred secret, I guess. But I'm pretty sure that was him that I went and sat across his desk. But if it was just bankruptcy, it couldn't have been him. So, whoa. In 2017, he wrote that he lost his faith like losing your eyesight after an accident. He regrets that church leaders have disregarded his criticisms of what he considers the church's growing anti-intellectualism, homophobia, misogyny, and elitism. So, yeah, I'd have to find out what his book talks about, Strangers in Paradox, to see what may have triggered it. Okay, here's Google Books. Okay, exploring a wide range of theological issues, Strangers in Paradox examines the paradoxical nature of Mormonism. The authors consider the nature of God, gender roles, religious authority, and symbolism on the assumption that the more one evaluates one's beliefs, myths, and rituals, the more vital and meaningful they may become. So again, he's got a naked Adam and Eve picture. Cool. You notice Eve is never portrayed naked, because it's evil. And who told us that it's evil to be naked? Lucifer. Let's see. For example, they illustrate that for every assertion about God being a human-like man with a physical body, with literal physical son accompanied by a third spirit personage, there is a correspondingly definitive pronouncement from church leaders and scriptures asserting the opposite. Jesus! Constantine! That the Godhead includes a woman. That God is spirit. That there is only one God, and that the Holy Spirit has a resurrected body. That's been debated in Mormonism. Because everybody's like wondering, well, if he's a spirit personage like the rest of us, and so he's our brother, right? But doesn't he need to come to earth and get a body and then die and then get a resurrected body and ascend to the celestial kingdom? Mormon theology. Confusing when you take it literal. The Book of Mormon is Trinitarian. So this is where I see what's going on here, is that he was trying to claim that the prophets were saying that the church is Christian, and yet the traditions from Joseph Smith are not Christian. So, interesting. Because, yeah, Mother in Heaven is pagan, not Christian. Temple, pagan, not Christian. And so I see what's going on there. Because the church does not want to be identified as pagan. Nelson is going out of his way to demand we're Christian, and evangelical Christians are exactly like us. As Holland's buddies with an evangelical pastor to prove to Mormons that that's the case. Alrighty, so apparently maybe not him, but maybe a brother. Unless he does multiple stuff. But that was way back in 2019 when I was looking around. Maxine Hanks. Again, they have to put in Mormon feminist theologian. As if it's a bad thing. We already understand she's female. Why do you need to put feminist? And Mormon and feminist, like Paul talks about, are a paradox. of contradiction. You can't be Mormon and a feminist. You are an anti-feminist if you're a Mormon. And so, yeah, these Mormons who demand to allow LGBTQIAPO plus into the celestial kingdom, you guys aren't getting it. To demand temple marriage, you're not getting it. For blacks to think, well, God is over the prophets and the prophets just need to listen to God in order to accept us as human beings, you're not getting it. You guys are not getting it. You're basing it on the belief that the church theology is true. And I just went over with you, it's not. As Avraham also figured out, sort of. He merged the two together. So, let's see. She compiled and edited the anthology Women and Authority, Re-emerging Mormon Feminism. We will go to work. We will wear the pants in the family. So she was excommunicated along with the contributor to that book, D. Michael Quinn, but she likewise had to come back to the church because her career in life was over. So in February 2012, she was rebaptized Mormon. Not much of a feminist, are ya? Lavina Fielding Anderson, Mormon feminist, edited the book Sisters in Spirit. Mormon Women in Historical and Cultural Perspective, as well as writing Lucy's book, an edition of Lucy Mack Smith's narrative. Not her journal, right? She was a former editor for The Ensign. Yep. That's the committee that we were involved in, was the church's curriculum department, which included The Ensign and the other magazines. And so the person who is the Ensign editor worked in that same department for the church at the church office building. It's now separated. It's now the priesthood committee. And I'm not sure if they're dealing with the magazines or not, because they were pushing towards going online, trying to do away with printed versions. And they're doing this years in advance. All the stuff you see in the stores, they were all invented years ago. So they finally figured out how to mass produce them and get them sold to us at the cheaper cost. But technology is farther advanced than we see on the store shelves. What we see and have access to is obsolete. And so, she was excommunicated for being a feminist. Apostasy. Like I said, you can't be Mormon and a feminist. Church does not see that as an option. You are the enemy, and you must be excommunicated. allegedly because of her article. No, she's a feminist. The LDS intellectual community and church leadership. A contemporary chronology. In Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought. Oh, you got it in that one? Ooh, oops. They let you put it in there? Oh, oops. They used to have Farms papers prior to Dialogue, but when they became part of the Maxwell Institute, and there's a funny story behind all that scandal, as well as Hinckley done punished them because I was given the Jesus card by Hinckley to work on the committee. So he's the one who disbanded Farms and created the Maxwell Institute, and then Peterson was allowed to be a part of it, but then they soon kicked him out, and so he formed FAIR, and then it became FAIR Mormon, and then when Nelson came out and said Jesus, they took off Mormon, and the church allowed him to work for the Deseret News as an editor. Because again, the church just destroys your career in life. They will not educate you in science-based fields to teach you to use scientific methodology for the developing of a theory to have it tested for confirmation or denial. They won't let you do this, because if you did this, Mormons would learn the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the great and abominable church. They have to suppress your education. So she continues to attend. Oh wait, what? See, again, these are Mormons who are just lost now that the church excommunicated them, and so they want to go back to church because they don't know any other way to live. My God, she continues to attend church as a non-member. She still writes on Mormon issues. She did case reports of Mormon Alliance, but her husband died in 2018. The bishop approached her, threatened her to come back, cave in. The first ecclesiastical leader in 24 years since she was excommunicated. The state council, high council, and regional council recommended to the first presidency that she be reinstated, but on August 27th, 2019, they received a denial without explanation. Wow. That is right before Gaddy v. COP. And soon before a certain person who had to sue himself, or sue in the courts himself, because a certain lawyer, which could have been the brother, and I think it was brothers in that same office building, if I remember right. So maybe that was the case, but nonetheless, yeah. And by the next day after I sued, my website got shut down. Oh man, I was setting it all up to do a page about updates on the lawsuit for people. I was so pissed. 3,000 views per day, and they just gone. They never existed. And so, yeah, the search engine, yeah, me. You type in me, all my website stuff. Type in the church, all my website stuff. And so a picture about the church, all my website pictures. And now, after all this time, yeah, all gone. The church destroyed me in retaliation for just filing. That's the process. You submit the papers to the court, and then you wait. But the next day, boom, the workers there in the clerk's office notified the church. And boom, gone. 2019. October 1st, because I filed September 29th, September 30th, the day before. That was the first of two. So, yeah, interesting timing. Anderson continues to attend weekly church services and published in 2020 a collection of essays regarding inclusiveness and gender inequality, mercy without end, toward a more inclusive church. No, you can't. You can't change what is corrupt. Again, it's the new wine in old wineskins. You can't do it. All you guys, whether you're involved with the church's racism, or the church's sexism, or the church's bigotry, or the church's abuse of children, you don't get it. You can't have the church change. You have to have a new church. You don't get it. And the new church can't have the old leadership. You don't get it. And human, not Jesus, because it's not Jesus' church. Jesus doesn't exist. This is what nobody is getting. When you go after the church to change, you are giving them validness that Jesus is running the church, and that they need to change to what Jesus wants them to do. You're not getting it. And it's so frustrating. And then finally, number 6. 66666. D. Michael Quinn. And I did meet with him. I took his University of Utah course, Mormon Sociology. It was a sociology course in Mormonism. And the first day of class, he says, I will not be talking about my excommunication. And I was like, what? You were, what? Who are you? What? What's going on? What? I knew nothing of September 6th. I was in Canada having cute babies for free and getting a real education. And so, yeah, had no clue who this guy was in 2006, somewhere. 2004 to 2006, I took his class. And so, yes, he's a sort of historian, but again, he doesn't conform to scientific methodology. Let's see. He documented church-sanctioned polygamy from 1890 to 1904. Oops. The church stopped. We were obedient to the laws of the United States. After the 1990 manifesto. And I again refer you to verse 11, which we must read again. Okay, we're gonna bring it up, I guess. Official Declaration number 1. The Lord will never permit me or any other man who stands as president of this church. You're not president of the church. The United States shut you down with the Edmunds-Tucker Act. You're already leading Mormons astray in the very sentence you're saying to lead you astray. You've been destroyed since 1887, 3 years ago. What are you doing? What are you saying? You're lying to Mormons. You're leading them astray, thinking you're the president of the church. You're not. You were disincorporated. It is not in the program. It is not in the mind of God. If I were to attempt it, you did, just now. The Lord would remove me out of my place. How would he do that? I've gone over it with you. A sign in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth. So what is the sign in the heavens for a president leading the church astray and being punished for it? Lunar eclipse. Remember? He had 2 of them. He was in between 2. And so he will every other president of Brigham's church. All of them. Every single one of them. Lunar eclipse. So that it's very clear this is the great and abominable church. But nobody listens. Nobody cares. And so Quinn was summoned to a disciplinary council to answer charges of conduct unbecoming a member of the church and apostasy. That's a generalized one. Your conduct is not in accordance with our beliefs, which we are making up for our own personal bias against you, so that we can't explain. Let's take well, can I finish? I have to talk about his publication, Mormonism and the Magic World View. '87. Yeah, that was before. Okay, so we'll take a break and we'll do a more fuller thing of D. Michael Quinn for you, because there's some stuff that needs to be talked about again. I've done videos on this before. So some things that I remembered during the break. D. Michael Quinn has been published in the Ensign. As you can see, Lavina was a former editor for the Ensign. So you can see how D. Michael Quinn got snuck into the Ensign. Just something for you to remember. And could also help explain why she was excommunicated. And why they wouldn't reinstate her. She abused her authority. Said the pot to the kettle. Oh dear God. Okay. And so, yeah, good times. Also, I'm not sure if I made it clear with Abraham, but even though he was doing the Hebrew in the footnotes, he has the weird Hebrew interpretive view, translative view, and it doesn't work. And so I don't know if I came across to explain to you that his Hebrew footnotes are in desperate need of revision. That was why I was doing them as part of my assignment, to just change the TGs and BDs to GS, Guide to the Scriptures. And I wasn't supposed to touch any of the other footnotes. That wasn't part of the plan. And it turned out I exposed a vast hole to hell of errors in the original work. As the supervisor had originally come to me and kept saying, you don't need to do the other footnotes, just, Guide to the Scriptures changes. That's all we want from you. And I couldn't let them go. And if you don't understand, the majority of the people took a long time to work on their pages that they received for the week. Whereas when I finished, I went up to the church office building to get the new set, and was going very fast. And it was very strange. I'm making more changes than everybody else, and I'm finished quicker than everybody else. I had a job at the time, and so they were thinking that because I had the Jesus card from Hinckley, and I guess I have to explain that, don't I? Because you may not have watched those videos where I discuss it. The Canadian with the cute babies, where I got real education in Lethbridge, Alberta, she abandoned the marriage, dumped me off in Utah. And it was all premeditatively planned with her mother to do so. And I found out as a sucker and loser. And she dumped me off in Utah and took off. And then a year later, I was given divorce papers from the courts saying that it's final on the 6th of August, and I have 1 month to appeal, and it was given to me more than a month later. I did reach out to the Canadian courts saying, hey, what's going on? I need to appeal this. And they said, okay, fine. If you want to appeal it, come on up and appeal it. And so, being divorced in the church is an automatic exclusion back at that time to work in missionary fields for the church, especially the ones off the books off the radar of the regular Mormons, because they come to you and choose you to be a part of that work. You can't apply for it. They call for elder couples to apply to be missionaries, and you get to choose where you want to go, whether it's a genealogy mission or a proselyting mission or other types of missions, tour guide and Nauvoo, etc. As an elderly couple, they let you choose. And if approved, obviously, but you pretty much get to choose. But for these, no, the church doesn't even know about them. They're the secret Adam on Diamond mission. Type of calling. and so, I had to be set apart by my stake president, laying out of hands for the assignment. And it was renewed after 2 years to complete the assignment that took 4 years for us to complete. And I had approached the church, F. Michael Watson, about my decipherment of Paleo-Hebrew, and he tried to have me excommunicated. He failed because I show up at the stake president's office because I was told I needed to meet with him for something. Okay, I'm getting a calling in the singles ward, younger singles ward, huh? Okay. I can understand. I'm older than the majority of the younger singles, and I'm divorced, and so give me a calling, maybe a member of the High Council. Boy, was I wrong. The full bishopric of the younger singles ward and the full stake presidency were in that tiny little office, all crunched together, and there I am. I crunched at the side of the desk where the door opens into, and they were interrogating me. Who have you told about this? We want names. Why are you trying to destroy the church? What? And then my bishop, the same bishop who got up at a sacrament testimony, fast and testimony meeting to list the number of types of masturbation for us, so that the kids in the singles ward would not get up and bear their testimonies. He said, I saw you pass on taking the sacrament one week. That means that you're guilty of sin. Oh my God. And what's going on? And the stake president said, we were told by President Hinckley that you have come to them and with this document, and I said, President Hinckley hasn't even seen it. And they all went, how dare you? And the stake president said, I'm going to Temple Square to see President Hinckley myself and figure out what's going on. He never came back to me. I never saw him ever again. He hid from me. And so I was called in, or I was in the stake president's office, and he wasn't even there. He didn't even appear, and it was the second counselor. And the second counselor said, you can continue to do your research, just don't go against the church. And so I kept going around trying to find others and farms, reached out to farms, and so the John Tvetness, he's dead now, I found out. He had told me on the phone, Joseph Smith is wrong. I just did the research. He's right. Scientific research. My education. Scientific research. He's right. What do you mean he's wrong? And so he holds I should probably save this for his video. So I went to one of his lectures at BYU on Abraham and supporting documentation, blah, blah, blah. And I raised my hand. What about the King Follett Discourse where Joseph Smith retranslates the Hebrew text of the Bible? Doesn't that support it? I'm helping his lecture. All hell broke loose. It was an overflow. I am awesome. And so, some days later, I get a letter from Peterson The guy who went to the Maxwell Institute and then Foreign Fair and all that, and the editor for the Deseret News. I get a letter from him saying, you have been told to stay away from farms. You are no longer allowed. Oh my God. Good day. And so, yes, farms, when they found out that I was also working on that committee, tried to have me booted out of the committee so that I could not be a part of it. But the supervisor was stuck. I had the Jesus card. And so, I had found that the church had this curriculum department and had gone to try to talk to him about it. And he says that he can't do anything because he is given orders from the president of the church as to what project he works on, along with the Ensign and the other magazines. He's in charge of those too at the time. And he had told me when I was approved that he had done a comparison of how the Book of Mormon, the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. He did a comparison of the differences. Okay. But he thought that was his great accomplishment in life. But apparently that's what got him his job. So, good for him, I guess. But he said he can't do anything for me. But as I was at work, I had been transferred to Beehive Clothing at the time. He just shows up in the back office, in the back warehouse where I'm working. And I'm surprised, and I realized, oh yeah, it's all the same company. I guess he can. And he gave me the paperwork to fill out to apply to work on the project. And so I filled out the paperwork and submitted them, and then he came back to my work, and told me that I'd been approved, and that it was approved by the highest authority, the Jesus card. And he had informed me that it had to go to President Hinckley for approval because I put on the form I'm divorced. Divorced people are not allowed. But he knew he needed to have me. I had put on my resume that I was published in BAR, Biblical Archaeology Review, for my translation of Egyptian. And I was. I needed to get that, but didn't get an opportunity to. The church destroyed me before I could buy it. And BAR has a collection from that time period of articles, and I'm in one of them, where Michael Shanks did a call out for translators to submit translations of an unknown, untranslated, undeciphered little amulet thing. And so I submitted mine, and he published it. And so I put that in my resume. And so he wanted me. My education at Lethbridge, deciphering Paleo-Hebrew, published in BAR, yeah, he wanted me. And so it had to be approved by President Hinckley himself, because I was divorced. And he said Hinckley wanted me too. Apparently he'd forgot that the very next year after the divorce that Stephanie had filed for a cancellation of the sealing. And you only get those if you're going to be remarried to another man. She wasn't yet. That would be the next year after that. And so her bishop sends me a letter, and I get it in the mail one day, and it says, Stephanie has requested that a cancellation of your sealing be made, and so we request that you put your feelings in writing about this. And so it was pretty much like, I felt sad when she abandoned me. I felt sad when she took our kids away from me. I felt sad that she took my possessions away from me. I felt sad that she fled the country. I felt sad that I was divorced from her without my say-so. Something like that. I don't have it memorized. But I was pissed that he would ask me about my feelings on the matter. And so, sure enough, I get a manila envelope in the mail with the official cancellation of the sealing. Did we just have a flicker of lights? Potent. I'm 18 minutes in. I do not want to redo this. Because there's no way I'm going to remember to put all this back. And it was a member of the 70 that was in charge of sending the bad news or good news to the individuals. And it got approved, and the member of the 70 put in his letter to me, "Don't worry, your kids will be yours in the afterlife." What? I'm supposed to have my own wife. They're supposed to have their own spouses. We're not going to be hanging out. What do you mean they're mine? How is that supposed to give me comfort now? So, there's that. And so, I had the Jesus card. And the very first thing he gave me was a copy of the First Presidency Statement regarding the use of the King James Version of the Bible. And as I read over it, I realized that there's some errors here. Again, I am educated, scientific processing and procedure and testing, and Benson is wrong. and yet nonetheless, I'm told that to change the Bible dictionary and topical guide to Guide to the Scriptures. And so, as I told you, I'm going very fast, and the supervisor is checking all my work, and has to keep telling me, only stick to Bible dictionary topical guide. And he says, we have people in charge of foreign languages. And nonetheless, I can't let those go. I have to make my comments on the document that those need to be changed. And those footnotes need to be in. And those Hebrew and those Greek words need to be corrected in the translation. And that the Egyptian needs to be put in there. I put in Egyptian. recommended. Peter, seer in Egyptian. But nonetheless, they ignored all that, as I've done videos where I've checked live on camera. And so, yes, Israel is one of them. And Cornerstone and Capstone was another. And you need to understand, it's in multiple places in Scripture. It's in Psalm and Matthew, etc. And I was given each of those where it was, and made that correction in the footnotes. Cornerstone, Capstone, because that's what it is. It is not chief cornerstone of the cornerstone. And as a result of ignoring me with the correct footnotes, you get Nelson getting up at conference in 2020 April. Jesus, and he's the chief cornerstone of the cornerstone. Only to be followed by Israel. Let God prevail. And so, yes, when he told me that they already had somebody, it was Abraham Gileadi was one of the people. And I could imagine others, because John Tavetius was still at farms then. And that would explain why farms found out about me, because they were working on it. And so you got to get rid of Travis. You got to get rid of him. You can't have him. No. And I even caught the supervisor with the bar that I referenced, and he was looking through the pages trying to find me. But yeah, I'm there. He didn't make mention of it. I just saw that he was looking through bar, and the one that I had put on my resume. And so they couldn't fire me they couldn't release me from this assignment, because Nelson or Hinckley wanted me, and they all assumed Jesus told Hinckley. So highest authority, Jesus card. And so because I was accurate, he was checking my work and realizing how accurate I am, to the point of astonishment. And he said, Bruce R. McConkie was this caliber with his assignment. And I've done the videos where I've talked about Isaiah. He did half of it, and another person did the other half. And if you go through the footnotes, starting on Isaiah 1 and working your way to the end of Isaiah, you will see which ones Bruce R. McConkie did versus that other person who will remain anonymous forever. It is blatantly night and day difference in the quality of the footnotes. But Bruce R. McConkie had to be corrected as well. And I was told that none of Bruce R. McConkie's work can be touched. as James Baker, a different James Baker, was in our committee that I'll get to in a minute. He had me join, which no problem there, to try to get the footnotes changed to make Tamar not a whore. But I've done that video for you. But dear God, But yeah, there are just certain things we could not change because of Section 107, and we'll cover that for you here. And this was when they formed the committees, when this was applied. Because as I was doing all these changes and they were accurate, the supervisor was getting others, eventually, with their first pages, likewise making changes. And it became very clear we need to go through the whole thing and redo it all. That the first group had messed it up massively. However, my philosophy of science instructor said, you don't have to be the best, you just have to be the first. And that has been the tradition in history, but and so the decision was then made with the guidance of the 70 who was in charge of it, and he does the interview with the woman in charge of Deseret Book. I can't remember her name offhand. I'm sure it'll come to me. She was the one who, when an apostle's wife had died, she tried to swoop in to be the second wife and got rejected. And so she's remained single to this day. As women in the church think she's an example of feminism, Mormon feminism. No, she got rejected. She doesn't want to be a Mormon feminist. She wanted marriage with an apostle. And that's a problem in the church, is women, as a result, seek for hierarchy of a man to marry and consider lesser men lesser human, unworthy of them. And it's a very disturbing trend in the church, as I see other anthropologists talking about the original humans and how women tend to select a mate who will give them security, so they look for the strongest man. If security involves financial support, then they look for the geeky nerd who's filthy rich, regardless of his physical appearance, and blah blah blah. And they're just wrong. Go back to science. Don't do this psychology crap. But there is, because of the psychology crap, telling women what to think and how to feel and what to do and how to act and how to behave. That's why I keep warning you in religion. Don't let people tell you what to do with your life. You need to learn the truth and be you. Don't be somebody else that other people want you to be. But it's throughout our whole society. And so anyway, and so the decision was made to create committee groups to work on the footnotes that were left, and then have two main committees that would overview the work of all of the committees and what had been done prior to the forming of the committees. And of course, having the Jesus card, I was put on the top of the two committees. The other committee was a bunch of BYU professors. Our group was the best, despite David Gaunt. And I've talked about in my videos over the years about how he's screwed things up. And his only qualification is that he was a seminary teacher for 16 years at that point in time. That was it. And the reason why it's not in English is because of a certain apostle who was involved in the original screw-up. He's still alive. And he just happens to be the president of a certain quorum. And is second in line for the presidency because the actual president of that quorum is in the first presidency. Yep. And so, and so David Gaunt would be drastically opposed. Like I said, when we went over the scriptures talking about the human Christ, he instantly interjected Jesus. And by doing that, we were deadlocked. And when deadlocked, nothing gets done, nothing gets changed or corrected. Because of this passage in section 107, which was used on our committees. Verse 27, and every decision made by either of these quorums, and committees was replacing quorums, must be by the unanimous voice of the same. That is, every member in each quorum must be agreed to its decisions in order to make their decisions of the same power or validity, one with the other. So David Gaunt found a way to bypass that to get his agenda pushed as he split up our committee. I was with Paul, and Paul would see the documents come in. Oh, this has got your signature at the bottom of it. Oh, well, I don't need to review this. This is perfectly fine as is. Next. Which I saw David Gaunt. Facial expression. Oh. But David Gaunt purposely needed to make sure certain pages were for him with James as his partner. And so that's how it ended up being. Our committee was split in half. But when James wanted my help to push to have the heading changed for tomorrow, I helped. And what happened was that if we wanted to make a change, we had to submit it in writing, what the change we want made and the reasons for the change, so that it can be documented and on file. And then it would go to the 70 and, if necessary, on up for approval. And it was not approved, along with some other things that I tried to have changed, especially in the guide to the scriptures. We were asked if we find errors in the guide to the scriptures to do that same process, and point out what we want changed and the reasons for the change. And so, none of those got approved either of mine. But I did, as I've done videos, they have made some of my changes. The last one I did, they did actually put in the Isaiah. So, yay! They got some of my stuff that carried over. That was probably what Paul just said, oh, it's got your signature at the bottom, let it go on through. Nobody else checked it. Good times. So, D. Michael Quinn, aren't we? We're talking about him. Is there a reason and rhyme? So, when David Gaunt opposed, nothing got changed because of that scripture that was used for the committee. And so it's still homosexuals that cause Sodom's destruction, despite the scripture that we were told, only scriptures, not our own personal bias and opinion. You don't put those in the footnotes. You put scriptures. And if you can find a president of the church or a prophet who has said something that would justify a different footnote, you'd submit it. But nope, homosexuality. So D. Michael Quinn, Mormon historian, among other studies, he documented LDS church-sanctioned polygamy. Yeah, we've gone over this, haven't we? Conduct unbecoming, very sensitive and highly confidential matters that were not related to Michael's historical writings. Oh? Like exposing what I did? Especially the True administration, where Wilford Woodruff was not the president of the church and claimed to be. Yep. It's also, there's an allusion, as it's put by Anderson, who has published books. I'm familiar with some of his works. But it's interesting how they don't, I guess would be reference 21. But it is suggested he's gay. He had never made it public, but there's the claim. And so again, church are sexist, church are racist, church are bigoted. And so afterward, and it's not afterward, okay. He did a book called Same-Sex Dynamics Among 19th Century Americans, a Mormon Example, which argues that homosexuality was common among early Mormons and was not seen as a serious sin or transgression. He's trying to justify it. Okay, but yeah, his hierarchy, I praise. The series, Origins of Power, Extensions of Power, and Wealth and Corporate Power. I have those books. They need to be scanned so that they're digitized in case I go to the streets to die. I won't have much to carry. It'll be on a USB. But, yeah, I recommend those books for you. But the one that he published prior to his excommunication for, what was it again? Conduct unbecoming a member of the church, which could be his homosexuality, apostasy, which is very likely this one, but including very sensitive and highly confidential matters, not sure if that would be included. But it's Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview. Likewise, have the book, need to scan it to digitize it. This argues that Joseph Smith is a witch. Plain and simple. He softens it by saying it's folk magic and superstition. You're calling Joseph a witch. You didn't even run the test to see whether he floats like a duck. You just assumed he's a witch. And again, I'd have to pull out the box that has the book to go over it with you to make sure that he doesn't know anything about the new Israelites. Because it's not talking about it here. But the new Israelites are not witchcraft. That divining portion came from Justice Winchell, who joined after Joseph Smith and Sr. and William Cowdery were already in the organization. So Justice Winchell was a latecomer. It was first only about Jewish mysticism. And I've told you I need to digitize that book. Joe Samson, written by the finger of God. It is essential if you claim to be Mormon and love the Book of Mormon. If you're an ex-Mormon and believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the great and abominable church, you must have that book. Whether you want to or not, you cannot continue to exist and claim the Book of Mormon is true, or claim the Book of Mormon is true because it exposes the great and abominable church, without knowing about Jewish mysticism. You cannot claim to know church history without knowing Jewish mysticism. Because currently, as you read online, it's all speculation and maybe, could be, possibly, and it's so frustrating. But the church purposely keeps it as a separate side thing that you can't find out if you're just a Mormon looking up Joseph Smith Sr. You won't find Jewish mysticism connection there. You will not find the New Israelites connected there. You have to go to the New Israelite Wikipedia page, which means you have to know about them in order to go there. And then at the bottom, it may be associated with Joseph Smith Sr. But we can't confirm. What do you mean you can't confirm? Everything confirms it. I've been doing the videos with you. Yes. And so all the signs in the heavens, to Hebrew, to prophecy, to a mortal bloodline from David, all Jewish mysticism. And it is not Judaism. It is different. It emerged in 600 CE with the alphabet Ben Sira, talking about Adam's first wife, Lilith, among other things. So, the fact that Quinn concludes with witchcraft rather than Jewish mysticism is where I have issue with his book. He did not do proper research. Because if he understood that the divining rods came from the New Israelites when Justice Winchell joined, he did not understand anything else about Jewish mysticism and why Smith Sr. had the Holiness to the Lord parchment with Jupiter symbols on them. Jupiter stone in Joseph's pocket when he was assassinated? Jupiter, huh? Lightning, huh? And so very frustrating that despite his hierarchy approval from me, I cannot approve early Mormonism and the magic worldview because it gets worse. He claims that Joseph Smith did certain events during witchcraft days but gets the witchcraft information wrong. As he gets the signs in the heavens wrong. And so, yeah, I cannot support that book. Because it's taking ex-Mormons away from the truth. As Mormons, well, yeah, you're wrong. You were excommunicated because you're gay. So you're wrong. And it's just so frustrating. So again, Joe Samson, written by the finger of God. An essential book. And you will read and understand also what Joseph Smith Sr. talks about in Jacob, or by Jacob, when he says the Jews look beyond the mark. That's what he's referring to also. Joseph Smith Sr. wrote the 116 missing pages? Rewrote them? Yes! Because D. Michael Quinn did not do pure scientific research study. Canandaigua, New York. I keep telling you this. You don't believe. The church believed and took it out of the first paragraph. And in the lower portion, it therefore was not linked to Canandaigua, New York. You have to now type it in Google rather than click on it to find out about Canandaigua, New York. See, the church knows me. They're scared. They're threatened when I do videos. This is why YouTube, and I saw it today, my uploading reverses itself, adds more time, freezes. Dear God. They are trying desperately to silence me without being blatantly obvious, and in so doing, they're blatantly obvious. I know what they're doing. They're going to silence me again. This is a threat from them to be silent, to not expose the church, to not reveal the truth about the church. Because September 6th is exactly what the church does when they feel threatened. Brad Wilcox, you don't hear about him anymore because the church was threatened. And not by people wanting to protest Brad. It was my videos. I have, let's look it up, because the algorithm program of YouTube still cannot keep up. I have screwed up the algorithm program with the first video of Brad. They don't have my I am under attack. And that video, another example of how I've been attacked. Guys, come on. I'm back to being silenced again. Yeah, 964 views in 7 days. Brad Wilcox. 7 days, 2 days ago. It's actually more like 9 days, I think. Or no, I guess it might have been on Tuesday, early in the morning, maybe. I don't know. It's been so long. But 964 views. The one I did previous to that, 46 views. LDS Magog battle update. Magog? Battle? And I showed you my old web page before the church shut it down, the main picture, that the way it was, it only showed a slip of it, but yeah, that was my homepage picture. Horus and Set doing battle. I'd been talking about this whole time, all these years, on my website, in my publications, on YouTube. I'm trying to get it through to you. And I don't know if you're this far into this video or if you gave up early on. I'm hoping that September 6th will trigger what it did for James J. Hamula remembering video. Let me bring that up. Revisiting LDS Church excommunication of James J. Hamula. It has 139 views on this channel, so it's TWG. That would have the bigger one. No. There we go. It was at 77 views, and they still have not put those back, as it's only up to 68. $703 views. So I'm hoping that with this, I will get the same response as I did with that video. Remembering the excommunication of September 6th, of Mormon excommunication, yeah. Mormon excommunication of September morn. You guys don't see how I'm being attacked by the church, and you don't care. You're not standing up for me like all these other people you've stood up for. And is it because of the human divinic king? Is that why I'm being betrayed by you too? But, yeah. And so, yeah, we're coming to the end of this, aren't we? My goodness, is this going on 3 hours? Oh. Okay, so he did come out openly gay after his excommunication. But he still wanted to be Mormon. The church doesn't want you. You know the church isn't true. And yet, I still want to go back. All of these guys still wanted to be Mormon. You know, for me, yeah, I want to be Joseph Smith's Mormon, not the current church Mormon. And others who have been excommunicated. You know, the ordained women leader, Kate Kelly, is it? Am I getting that name right? She was shocked that the church excommunicated her. What do you mean shocked? They're sexist. What did you think was going to happen to you eventually? You know, John Lynn, psychologist, talking about men being gay in the church, doing talks with Mormons who leave the church, trying to help them in their faith crisis as a groomer. an educated, trained, experienced, and licensed groomer. If you remember the video I did yesterday, or the day before, about the psychologist who brainwashes, hypnotizes Mormons to believe they're mentally ill. Watch that video, and remember, John DeLynn is a psychologist too. For the Brad Wilcox, he groomed in his interview a kid. And you guys don't listen, you cancel culture me, you stick to John DeLynn, to his side. We stand by John DeLynn, just as Mormons stand by the church and Nelson. And you don't see what you've become. You've been conned. And these September 6th all have been conned, except for the one antagonist, Paul. Toscano, is that the name? Yeah, Toscano. Who's a little bitter. But this is what the church did. When you did something the church disapproves of, you're excommunicated, disfellowshipped, whatever. That's why I go to the church, Joseph Smith is a translator. Oh, excommunicate him! Burn the witch! And so all of them were excommunicated except for Whitesides. And only 3 of the 6 have retained Avraham or regained church membership. And it's sad that these people had been sabotaged by the church, that when they did what their disposition had made them become, was then punished by the church. And that's the utopian principle from Thomas More's Utopia. And if you're like, what? Well, you probably know it better by Drew Barrymore quoting him in Ever After. Let's see if I can find it. There it is as a picture, a quotes cram. So we'll go from that, even though it doesn't have the reference source. For if you suffer your people to be ill-educated, Brigham Young University, and their manners be corrupted from infancy, and then punish them for those crimes or sins or apostasies to which their first education disposed them. What else is to be concluded from this but that you first make thieves and then punish them? And in this particular case, you first make Mormons or apostate Mormons and then punish them. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints made all these apostates and then punished them for what they made. And so again, we're going to use this in my video. thing. Okay. Same thing here. Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow were made by the Mormon Church. And they got punished themselves rather than the church punishing them. I don't think Chad may have been excommunicated. Let's find out, because that would fit into this whole thing. You don't have a Wikipedia page? Seriously? After all that's gone by? Nobody's going to give you one. They didn't give it to Brian David Mitchell either. It's the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. Yep, they did it here too. Killings of Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. They will not give them acknowledgement in the Wikipedia page. And so, let's see. Let's go to background. Chad Guy Daybell. He was born 11 August 1968, Provo, Utah. I married Tamara Douglas May 4th, 1970. Oh, that's her birth to death. Married in Manti, Utah on March 9th, 1990. He graduated from Brigham Young University, education, in 1992 with a BA in journalism. See, all Mormon journalists will not report on the church unless the church allows it. That's why the whole news in Utah is silent now about Brad Wilcox, because the church was pissed that I got those hundreds of views, and they needed to shut me down in the algorithm program. They couldn't figure out how to fix it. And so the church had to silence everybody on the issue so that people would forget about them and not come to my video, because the majority of people search in YouTube, and when they search they find me, and they can't figure out how to bypass that. And so the church had to step in and silence the press, silence the Mormon agitators, and have it all disappear. And I was right. I told you. And sure enough. And so he worked as a cemetery sexton or grave digger, among other jobs. In 2004, he founded a Spring Creek book company, which used to publish his end times fiction. Right? I guess possibly fiction and other religious books. It's not talking about a near-death experience, though. Yeah, because that's why he started doing these books, was because he had a near-death experience and believed that Jesus told him about the end of the world, and so he writes these fiction books and other books about his near-death experience and his Mormon viewpoint, to which he's first disposed on the matter, and it was going against the church's doctrine. The church has already long since come out and said, do not publish books about your own personal spiritual experiences. You have to separate them from the church, because the church will not approve them. Even in Catholicism, if you think the Virgin Mary has appeared in your cereal bowl, you cannot publish it. You have to present it to the Catholic Church, and then there's a person assigned to review it and determine whether it is or is not, and then you can make money off of it if they approve it, as it can be now a pilgrimage site for everybody to come see. There's one in downtown Salt Lake, by the way, a tree. I looked at it one day. Weird. Okay, whatever. But apparently that one was approved. I think it wasn't Mary. I can't remember now if it was Mary or Jesus. But yeah, dear God. And let's see, his partner in this venture was a man identified in the media only by the name of Douglas. He doesn't want to be known. I want nothing to do with this guy. Please leave me out of this. A graphic artist and manager. Chad and Tammy had 5 children. Garth, Emma, Seth. Seth, seriously, you named one of your sons Satan. Good job. Like I said, Seth, the Egyptian murderer of Osiris, who usurped the kingdom, and then did battle with Horus when he came to restore the kingdom of his murdered father, is in Paleo-Hebrew the child born after Abel is murdered. And Satan, the adversary, who makes bets over whether or not Jacob or Job will betray God, is the same but with the N at the end. And in Paleo-Hebrew, being the one who deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, the N is the suffix determinative for a king. And Satan, having usurped the throne from Osiris, King Set. Satan. That's where it all originates from. And there he is, naming his middle son Seth. And now all of you out there who also are named Seth are going, oh crap! My parents hate me! No, it's because you guys don't know about it. But those of you who are named Jacob or James, and so yeah, in 2015, when was 2015 again? What event occurred that shook the Mormon Church, that caused Monson to come out with a first presidency message to say, nothing to see here, move along? The Tetrad! That I've done a full video of, beyond what other people are talking about it, with the deaths of 3 apostles, which shook up the leadership to put Nelson in pole position. And Joseph Smith history, I've tied that to the tetrad of 2014-2015, as we are now in a tetrad. As today, still nothing. Maybe he's waiting for me to finish these videos for you first. This is going to take forever. This is going to be all day. I won't get to any of these others. Dear God. But yeah, he says he heard a voice, and Mormons understand what he means by that. But those who are not Mormon will read that and go, oh yeah, he's schizophrenic. He needs to see a psycho who will drug him and remove him from society. I mean, Lori, she was stuck in the mental evaluation during her court process. Psychos are evil. These guys are criminals. Lock them up. Don't waste any more time with the court. But yeah, he hears the still small voice, so he thinks it's the Holy Spirit. His spiritual witness is telling him to relocate to Rexburg, Idaho. And so he and Tammy moved there from Springville, Utah that June. And then he murders Tammy. Whether it's a crisscross, we don't know. It's supposedly natural causes, but they've realize after finding the kids they need to reevaluate the body. If you had done the forensic investigation right the first time, I mean, do you remember when I had the prop right in this position right here of a body of proof? Let's review body of proof for you. Dana Delaney as Megan Hunt. She goes over in excruciating detail for us the need for science rather than spiritual witness, rather than bias, because you're trying to cover something up or you're not wanting to do the job because you're busy and you got to rush through to get things done. No, because you never know when you're going to stumble upon something that will eventually get you murdered. Because you weren't supposed to expose it. So, yeah. And so the church's default policy is to refuse to publicly discuss details about the reasons for any excommunication. The church is silent why a member is disciplined. And they're claiming scripture from Doctrine and Covenants, section 102, but I refer you to section 102. Who is it? Who? Which council? Oh, it's the stake. But who's listed as members? What? Who? And I found where Brigham Young did away with it. I found that. I have that in my collection now. It's digitized. Yep. There's a whole bombshell of bombshells upon bombshells in all of his sermons. I could spend the rest of my life doing a complete separate channel all about Brigham Young's bombshells, exposing him as the cause, vindicating Joseph Smith because he took the credit for it. The Mountain Meadows Massacre, Brigham confessed. Oh, wait, the church only had John D. Lee excommunicated as a sacrificial offering to protect Brigham, who confessed. I found the documents. It's in the Joseph Smith papers. All this time, the church just lies. Oh, no, his letter was dated the date 13th, not on 9/11. Oh, it couldn't have been. He couldn't have known. He couldn't have ordered it. He confesses. So, alrighty. The LDS Church later excommunicated Janice Merrill, Allred, those polygamous, in 1995, and Margaret Merrill Toscano in 2000, both of whom had collaborated with several of the September 6 and were involved in disciplinary actions during 1993. Dear God. Criticism of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These are antichrists. They're apostates. They're evil and should be regarded as such. Jeremy Runnels, please. If you believe Jeremy Runnels was serious about his questions, that he did the research himself and had those questions independent, such that he was innocent. He was sincerely desiring to know and went to the CES director. You got another thing coming. I read through it and found where he starts, oops. You blew it there, Jeremy. I see what you're doing now. You're just getting them all from Gerald and Sandra Tanner, who were also excommunicated but were not part of September 6th.